Coming up this week on Montclair News Lab, we learn about the increased dangers of football concussions and the lasting effects they can have on players.
When I was 17 years old, toughness was being the biggest, strongest, fastest, guy on the field.
You think of tornadoes in the South, but in New Jersey?
Tornadoes, on average, we get 2 or 3 a year in New Jersey.
And later, how a Montclair State student is defeating all odds and inspiring others with his music. From the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University, this is Montclair News Lab. Hello and welcome to Montclair News Lab. I'm Carly Henriquez. We start today with a look at football concussions and their physical and mental impacts on young people. The sheer numbers are disturbing. Montclair News Lab reporter Layal Abukaf tells us more.
Kevin Sam from Morristown. To him, playing football was all about being tough.
When I was 17 years old, toughness was being the biggest, strongest, fastest, guy on the field, scoring touchdowns, hitting home runs, getting the girls. To me, that was what tough was.
Kevin Sam knows what it's like to get hit in the head during a football game. During his senior year in West Morris Central High School, Kevin's life began to unravel. He received a second impact syndrome, which is when the brain swells dangerously after a person suffers a second concussion before the first one has healed. He remembers the game.
We were a yard away from the end zone. Next play, scored a touchdown. But then the following offensive series, I get hit again, and as I'm going to the ground, another defender comes in and goes right for my head. I get up to see why the ref didn't throw a flag, but when I got up, I couldn't feel my legs. So from the waist down, it felt like rubber, and at that point, I knew something was seriously wrong, and I was starting to get scared.
Kevin also remembers the trainer checking him out.
I was telling her my brain hurts, and I can't feel my legs over and over and over again. And my dad eventually came down the sideline. Didn't even know who he was. I didn't recognize him. So she immediately called for a helicopter. Basically, as soon as that happened, I collapsed on the sideline, had a grand mal seizure that lasted 15 minutes, wasn't breathing. Then they transported me to a local baseball field where the helicopter picked me up. At that point, I kind of snapped out of it.
After that, football has never been the same in Kevin's eyes. In any given season, 10% of college football players and 20% of high school football players sustain brain injuries. Recent studies show that football injuries to the brain occur every 5 games. Dr. Rafael Lagnigro of AIM Orthopedics in Little Falls explains the importance of the recovery process after the first concussion. He cites the dangers of returning to the field prematurely.
They can have what's called a double impact syndrome, which could just lead to more severe brain injury and long-term permanent effects to possibly, as any brain injury could lead to cognitive issues, neuromuscular issues, motor issues, and if that occurs, then it's more of a serious brain injury.
According to Dr. Rafael, there's not much you can do to eliminate concussions.
I don't think they're ever going to develop a helmet or anything that can actually avoid having a concussion because the injury occurs within the skull. So no matter how much protection you have outside of the skull around your head, the brain can still move depending on the impact.
David Field, 21-year-old football player at Montclair State University, knows the risk, but his love for football will not stop him from playing.
I'm not scared of getting a concussion. I feel like if you play scared, you will get hurt. So I try really not to think about it.
Now, 29-year-old Kevin has a different definition of toughness.
I can go back and play 1,000 more times. I would just play much differently than how I played before. Really put my health and my safety ahead of anything because I think kids get into this glorified world of playing hurt and being the hero and learning what I've learned. That's really not being tough at all.
From Montclair News Lab, I'm Layal Abukaf.
During the 2018 to 2019 academic year, the number of students playing high school sports has dropped, with high school football accounting for much of the decline. This is the first time in 30 years that the number has decreased. Grace?
All year long, students at the School of Communication and Media are exploring the impact of climate change. We call the effort Focus Climate Change. The next big event is coming up on November 15th, when we will be broadcasting a statewide show focusing on climate change's impact on New Jersey. Today, we're joined by Nicole Appel, one of the show's executive producers. Thank you so much for being here, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now what can we expect to see on this show?
Focus Climate Change, Ask the Experts is what this semester's production is being called, because we decided to take and make it a two-part production. So instead of doing one big one throughout the first semester, we're going to do a little brief overview leading into the big one next semester. And it's going to be a 1-hour primetime broadcast featuring a few different experts in the realm of climate change, coming from a variety of backgrounds. So we have the NJ State climatologist coming, Dave Robinson. We have Scott Fallon, who's an environmental reporter for USA Today. We also have a professor coming from the Center of Environmental and Life Sciences here at MSU, a senior research scientist at NASA, and then also a campaign director from NJ Conservation Foundation.
What's the goal out of the show?
I think overall the goal of this show in particular is just to bring greater attention to the issue of climate change. It's something that's happening all around the world within our country, but I think what a lot of people don't realize is how big of an impact it has so close to home here in New Jersey, and that's what the show is focusing on specifically, is particularly New Jersey itself. Over the years, there's been a lot of issues that scientists have recorded and seen changes in our environment and with the climate itself. So within the next couple years, we're going to see a lot of different issues coming from the Jersey Shore.
So where can people submit the questions they have about climate change?
Yeah, so for the show, we're getting questions from social media from people who just generally have questions and want to know what they can do to help. So if you have questions or anyone has questions, they can tweet us at the hashtag AskFocus and potentially have the chance to have it answered by one of the experts that we're bringing on for our show.
All right, well, thank you so much. I really look forward to seeing the show.
Thank you for having me.
When you think of climate change in New Jersey, tornadoes are not the first thing that come to mind. Montclair News Lab reporter Rebecca Service has our story.
When people think of tornadoes, they think of high-speed, damaging winds in the Midwest, where the wind speeds reach EF5 or over 200 miles per hour, the highest on the scale. Others think of Kansas, wicked witches, and how it was all just a dream.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
It wasn't a dream for Springfield, New Jersey residents after an EF0 tornado touched down right outside this now condemned building behind a BMW dealership.
On August 7th, earlier this year, an EF0 tornado made landfall on the side of Route 22 East. No one was injured from the small tornado, but many were shocked and quick to capture it on social media from a nearby office building across the highway and in the neighborhood surrounding. One of the witnesses of the tornado was Gene Moscow, a general sales manager at Springfield BMW.
It was scary. To witness a tornado was scary. I said, oh my God, and the only thing you seen was this big swirl of wind, and they don't come straight.
What was shocking to many was that it is very uncommon for a tornado to touch down in the Northeast. The last tornado officially reported in Union County was in 1899 in Elizabeth, but there were already 8 this year in New Jersey. Dr. David Robinson, the New Jersey state climatologist, confirmed that 2019 is already one of the top years for the most tornadoes ever to occur in the state.
Tornadoes, on average, we get 2 or 3 a year in New Jersey.
Scientists suspect the cause. The atmosphere is getting warmer, and so is the ocean.
And in a warmer world, it's not only the atmosphere that's warming, it's the ocean that's warming. And we might lose some of the advantage from being near the coast when the offshore waters are warmer. So the ocean tends to be the great modifier. It kind of takes the legs out under for the most severe thunderstorms.
These severe thunderstorms have the power to create tornadoes, but a majority of them do not reach above EF1. Given the unpredictability of tornadoes, Robinson tells New Jersey residents not to expect the worst, but to be prepared for it.
We know it's changing, but we're just not sure of all the details of what's going to happen.
The Springfield tornado is a far cry from the yellow brick road, but it's going to take a lot more than a pair of ruby slippers to prevent more. Reporting from Springfield, Rebecca Service, Montclair News Lab.
WMSC, our school's radio station, has exciting things planned for the month of November. Let's check in with George Jamgoshian to get a sneak peek of what's to come.
Hi News Lab, George Jamgoshian here on behalf of WMSC. With the holiday season approaching, we have a lot of great stuff coming up, and one of the things we always look forward to is the toy drive at Roberto Clemente School in Newark, New Jersey. Each year at WMSC, we look forward to giving back to kids in need, and if you want to donate to kids ages 6 to 10, then drop off a gender-neutral gift at the radio station office before December 11th. We're looking forward to your generosity, and we hope you have a great holiday season. Back to you in News Lab.
For decades, men's sports have had a macho image, but that's changing as people become more open and secure about their gender and their preferences. This week, Red Hawk Spotlight shines a light on Montclair State's senior soccer defender, Ian Johnson, who spent years struggling with being open about who he is.
The closet's a scary place to be in, so if you can find an ally or someone that you can go to and just to even talk about it, definitely try to find that person.
You're also very open about being gay. I just want to take me through the process of what it was like before you decided to come out.
I always grew up with musical theater and stuff that some people wouldn't consider super masculine. So I think I always kind of tried to challenge masculinity.
So was there one person in particular that you decided to talk to first?
Yes, actually, it's she doesn't go here to Montclair, but one of my best friends from home. We were sitting on the ground at Penn Station, and I just turned to her. I said, "Allie, I'm gay," and she said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah," and I started sobbing on the floor of Penn Station during rush hour.
What would your message be to any fellow student athletes who are struggling and maybe afraid to come out publicly?
Just to stay the course. It's not always going to be the easiest. It's not always going to be as smooth as you would like it to be, but it always will get better and it always will work out in the end. And if it's not your time, it's not your time, to not force it, but also don't hide yourself. The closet's a scary place to be in, so if you can find an ally or someone that you can go to and just to even talk about it, definitely try to find that person.
Coming up, a story that will inspire and amaze you. Our school's newspaper, the Montclarian, produced this extraordinary feature on an extraordinary young man.
You come out of your darkened world, craving all of... Mobius syndrome is a neurological disorder where the 6th and 7th cranial nerves are underdeveloped, making me have facial paralysis. I was born with facial paralysis, and I also cannot move my eyes left or right. I have to turn my head. I was actually born with the inability to swallow, so the doctor said I was never going to eat regularly. So I had to have a feeding tube, and at the age of 3, I proved the doctors wrong, and I actually got the feeding tube out. That started my journey of proving to people what I can and can't do. If someone tells me I can't do something, you know, I go out of my way to prove them wrong. But it never seems to be enough. I just always loved singing. I think I was always drawn to that because music is such a powerful way to show how you feel. If I couldn't show my facial expression, music was always an outlet for me. I know people who can just kind of sit down and force out a song, but for me, I hear a melody in my head. I just hear a sound or a word, Jaded. Someone said Jaded, my newest single, and I just love that word. The feeling of feeling worn down and teared down. People my age, that should feel like they're in a safe space. They're not. They're uncomfortable because they've been bullied their whole lives, that society has just shut them down. I wanted to be that role model that I never had growing up. I never had someone to show by example that I am going to thrive. I am going to do well in life. I kind of took it upon myself for even old people, young people with disabilities, without it, just to follow your passion and don't let anyone stop you from being who you are. You got me feeling jaded, your love is over.
For more videos like this, visit themontclarian.org.
Are you ready for the photo of the week?
Why, yes, I am, Grace.
Each week, Professor Thomas Franklin sends us a photo from his photojournalism class. This week's photo comes from Megan Lim and was taken in South Brunswick, New Jersey. looks like they're having a lot of fun.
Honestly, the guy with the guitar, he looks like he's Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
He really does, and the van really shows off the Scooby-Doo vibes.
Were you going to say it's a nice band?
I was not going to say.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Montclair News Lab. Tweet us at MSU News Lab.
Also, visit our website, montclairnewslab.tv, for more.
Thank you for joining us today. For Montclair News Lab, I'm Carly Henriquez.
And I'm Grace Rowland. See you next time.